Hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of February 2nd through February 8th. Now, before we get started, I want to remind everybody that I am running a special through the month of February, but remember, this special has a goal. Most specifically, the funds that are raised by doing this special, by booking this special with me, you are directly helping me start my nonprofit, and the goal is to get that completely filed and alive in the month of February. So what do you have to do? You go to the website, www.thespirituallyboujee.com. You can see that right here. Go to the little triple bar, go to astrological services. A couple different options here, but you specifically want to go to the BOGO readings. If you click anything else, there isn't a special. It's just the normal pricing. Click on the BOGO readings. You book two 90-minute sessions for the price of one. Usually I only run this special during Gemini season because this is how we usually celebrate my birthday, but we're going to have a different birthday. We're going to create something with this particular special. So make sure you go to the website. You can book two 90-minute sessions. I do suggest you separate them anywhere between a month, quarterly, or every 6 months because we can reduce the redundancy, but we'll be able to cover a lot of things in those 90-minute sessions. If you are not wanting to book a session right now, remember, I do have this tip service. I don't normally boast about this because this has been something that's been available for a very, very long time. I just don't normally talk about it. But you go to buymeacoffee.com/spiritually bougie. And this is a tip service where you can donate $5, $10, $20. It's completely up to you in regards to what you might be willing to do. So it's called buymeacoffee.com/spiritually bougie. And again, the link for that is in the description of every single episode. Now, we're going to get into the week. And I want to be super clear about the dynamic of this week. And we're not going anywhere fast. Like, we had a lot of rapid things hit through January. And in the last few days of January, kind of leading into the full moon, because again, the full moon is how we started the month. February 1st is the full moon in Leo. We're still in full moon energy as we go into this week because the moon will still be in Leo on Monday. But whenever it comes to everything else being in air sign energy, it doesn't feel like a huge leap forward for a lot of people. It doesn't feel like a huge dynamic of things moving forward for a lot of people. It actually feels like a lot of conversations, a lot of planning, a lot of strategizing, a lot of noise, a lot of arguments. Some people are going to be stubborn. I don't want to do certain things a certain way. Some people's like, well, I do want to do them. So where can we find the middle point? And we need negotiations. This is a very loud, noisy, informational level week. It is not explosive, charge headfirst into anything. In a lot of ways, we're kind of in a shock to our system. Now, think about everything that came through in January, just how much big things, little things, hits to the nervous system we had through January, because January was pushing us into place for what will be the encompassing of our new normal through the rest of the year. A lot of us, those hits had a shock wave to our system. We are in shock with something. And whenever it comes to parts of this week, it's like talking through the shock process. But the thing is, not everybody's aware of what's happened to you. You are not aware of what's happened to everybody else. So again, there's a lot of conversations, and it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this. Oh my God, I can't believe they promoted him, fired him, blah, 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 blah. There is noise. There is conversation. There's gossip. For some people, it's going to be gossip. There's a noise through this week. A lot of people are going to be having to either contribute to parts of that noise or just dealing with the buzzing noise around you. It's just going to be extra loud. All of it has a purpose, though. The strategizing has a purpose. The negotiations have a purpose. And they're going to be the things that start to round us into what we're willing to fully commit to at the start of eclipse season. That's not that far away. The thing about that full moon in Leo is, again, it was the last lunation before eclipse season. And for many people, it was bringing something into light. It was showcasing something. And some of that vibration needs to get talked about. It needs to be brought to light. It needs to be told to certain people. And for a lot of people, there are elements of shock to this week. And there's a big reason why. Uranus. Yeah, we're not talking about Saturn for once. It's Uranus. And it's Uranus, not Uranus. My inner child cannot say Uranus 50 times a day. It's Uranus. Uranus is a big player in this week. And remember, Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius, where all the other transits are right now. Remember, in Aquarius right now, we have Mars, we have Pluto, we have the Sun, we have Venus, we have Mercury. So we have a lot of things going on in Uranus's sign. And one of the first things we do this week is end the Uranus retrograde. Uranus turns direct. And this will be the last time Uranus turns direct in Taurus. So for many people, there's a turn in the vibration, a turn of sorts in regards to not holding something back anymore, willing to take steps forward, but these steps are not immediate. And for a lot of people, the turn is a part of the shock wave. Immediately after Uranus turns direct, we're going to start planets squaring Uranus. So squares are 90-degree angles, but all of the planets squaring Uranus are in Uranus's sign. I understand why you feel this way. I understand why you've changed your idea. I understand what you want to move forward. I understand you. There's comprehension. The first square to Uranus is going to come from Mercury, our logical brain. There's a logic, there's a communication, there's a strategizing, there's a plan, there's a negotiation, there's contracts, there's information, there's data. How that gets transmitted can go from smoke signal to psychic energy to technology to handwritten. There's so many ways that can come through, but it's informational. After Mercury goes through its square to Uranus, it will enter Pisces. And that is where Mercury is going to be until April 14th. I'm not entirely happy about that. And maybe the reason he's going to be there that long is because we are going to have a Mercury retrograde that starts later in the month. And whenever I look at Mercury going into its detriment, because that's what it's going to be doing, there is a lost in the sauce energy. And there is going to be certain conversations after some of the shock waves that specifically bring up deep-seated areas of wounds, triggers, and areas that need healing. There is a need to scrape the bottom of the bowl, but the bowl is like the ocean. It's the darkest abyss of like, I don't talk about that anymore. Well, guess what, baby? It's time to talk about it. There's a need to talk about it. There's a need to process something tied to an old wound. And that's going to be a big encompassing that also coincides with eclipse season. There are layers to that. We're not going to get into all of it. Upon the entry of Mercury going into Pisces, there will be the second square to Uranus, and that will be Venus. Now, Venus is square to Uranus. I like it. Venus rules Taurus. That's where Uranus is at. Uranus rules Aquarius. That's where Venus is at. These two are in mutual reception. They're in a house swap. It's like calling your friend going, hey, thanks for letting me stay at your lake house. Where's the can opener again? What's the garage door code? Are you sure you're going to be able to feed my cats? Yeah, I got it. We got it all taken care of. There's a familiarity to it. There is reception. There is acceptance. There's an understanding of both parties simultaneously. And for some people, because of the entry of Mercury into Pisces, this mutual reception will also be a part of that lost in the sauce energy, going not now on the negative side, but more on the positive side of just like completely encompassing our focus and everything that we're talking through and everything that we're working on and all of our emotional needs in some way. Uranus is a big player to this week. But what I notice with Uranus transits is it's very rarely tear flowing type of energy. It's usually just one of those like loud mental shocks. I'm done. Are you sad? No, I'm not sad about it, but I'm done. You can feel parts of yourself suddenly being done with something. Burn the bras, liberation type vibration. But each part of that liberation, each part of the push towards a new dynamic has an understanding to it. Might not be an understanding to the entire world, but it's like talking to somebody that you wouldn't normally see eye to eye with in some ways, but both knowing you come from messed up backgrounds. My trauma and your trauma are not that different. It just changed us as individuals. The way I do things and the way you do things are two different ways. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It's just looking at somebody and going, I recognize the crazy in you because I have that same kind of crazy in me. And that's okay. Expect noise this week. Expect an understanding of each other's crazy in a certain way. There's a lot of conversations. And for some people, there might even be challenges because we are having squares to Uranus. But it feels like because Uranus is newly direct, it doesn't have to be a challenge unless it's something that threatens personal liberties. I know that's a very loaded statement, but that's the word I keep hearing anytime I'm focused on Uranus right now. There's a liberty to something, liberation to certain things, independence in so many ways, because Uranus is the breaker of chains. I don't want to work the way everybody else does. I don't want that same kind of grind. I want to do something for myself and on my own. It's a different element of independence whenever it comes to the Uranus vibrations. Okay. Let's get into the week. Let's get into Monday, February 2nd. We're going to start this at 3:30 in the morning. That is because between 3 and 5 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon in Leo, still very much in full moon energy. We are just about 12 hours after the full moon perfected on February 1st. So very much still in full moon energy. We have the moon hitting its opposition to Venus. Anytime we have a Venus part, there can be something about taste, something about the beauty of something, some level of appreciation, some kind of attaboy, some kind of support. Again, Venus is in Aquarius. So there can be still this vibration around like, this is how I felt for a really long time, or this is the thing that I want to do next, but I want it to last for a really long time. We have so much fixed energy signs going on, fixed energies, fixed transits and fixed energy going through. We're not getting a big dynamic of movement, but we are having very confident conversations because again, the moon is still in Leo. Moon hits this opposition to Venus, the most exact between 3 and 5 a.m. Bump this a couple more hours. We're going to have two things that are going to actually happen simultaneously. So we're going to get this to 8:30. And here's the two things. One, the moon is going to hit this opposition to Mercury. You can see this right here. Here's the moon, 22:36. Here's Mercury, 22:18. The other thing that is going on in this simultaneous energy is Chiron is starting a trine to the moon. And as we go into the latter parts of Monday, Mercury and Chiron will actually hit a sextile. This right here seems like a foreshadowing energy, and some of us might be getting some kind of call that we're needing some kind of solution, but we can't do the solution right then. It's like, hey, if you give me until this evening, I'll be able to help you out. I'll be able to put this forward. I'll be able to change something. And it's almost like setting a detail or setting a plan. Mercury being, again, that logical brain, something that needs to be communicated, talked through, something along these lines. Chiron being that wounded healer. Sometimes we need to have the conversations about how something hurt us, but in other ways, we need to find something that's more geared towards solutions. This seems to be the pattern that I usually see with Chiron. Talking about the wounds and stuff from the past that have brought us to a certain place, talking about the wounds, or talking through solutions. What the wounds have taught us in our own healing process can also be a part of that. So we can be having some conversations about how something has been making us feel, but I don't feel like this is a negative piece to our confidence because, again, the moon is in Leo. And we're still in that full moon energy. I wouldn't always just go so strong with Leo's confidence, but in this case, with us still being in this full moon, riding high from it, there is this dynamic about the full moon that's still feeding into this. So it's easily seen to me, at least. All right, we're going to bump this now to the 5:36 o'clock time frame, specifically because we're going to have the next two transits happening simultaneously. One, between 4 and 6 p.m., Uranus, a stationing Uranus, about to turn direct Uranus, ending its retrograde Uranus, is hitting this square to the moon. There's something about the shock wave, or there's something about what somebody else says that kind of instigates parts of the turn. And it's also putting forth something that we're going to be putting our mental focus on after this point, because we have another thing happening simultaneously. So I'm going to bump this now from 5:30 to 6:30 just to show you the exactness. At 6:30, this is where Mercury, 23 degrees, 3 minutes, has its exact sextile to Chiron, 23:3. Now, the thing is, we're wrapping up the moon in Leo. The moon is about to go into Mercury's sign while Mercury is starting its sextile to Chiron, and while Mercury is building its square to Uranus. Parts of the energy of this week, again, speak to noise. It speaks to strategizing. It speaks to negotiating. It speaks to the documentation. It speaks to the write-up of something. It speaks to the data, the source, the info, the credentials. There is something very informational about this week. And I feel like as we get into Monday evening, there is a trigger in this vibration. Again, Chiron is hitting the sextile to, the sextile from Mercury. Mercury is hitting the sextile to Chiron. I said that kind of backwards. Mercury is in the higher position right here. So I have news, I have information. For some people, that is going to be information, or again, how we get a solution towards something. For other people, we're going to be communicating about a wound in some way. But for some people, there is a shock vibration because, again, Uranus, a stationing Uranus, is hitting that square to the moon. We're just kind of separating from it at this point, but it's still very active. So we can still have some things that are coming through that are kind of like shocks to the system. After the moon goes through its square to Uranus, the moon is going to go void for a couple hours. So that doesn't mean that we can't get some things done. It's just, sometimes we get little lags in our body of like, yeah, I'm not doing anything else for the rest of the day. I'm kind of over it. And when we get into the evening time, most specifically at 9:22 p.m., so I got this now at 9:30, the moon goes into Virgo. The moon is now in Mercury's sign. Over the next 2 days, we just had Mercury sextile to Chiron. That was just a few hours before the moon went into Virgo. And then at the end of this, Mercury is going to hit a square to Uranus. There is an information, there is a negotiation, there is a pattern, there is a process about how we have been of service. There is some kind of data orientation. There's information that is shifting into awareness. It might not all be changes per se, in the sense of like, we're going to change all of our logos. Some of you, it might be that, but it might not have to be that. It could be something more background, curriculum, data, informational, planning, strategizing, negotiative types of vibration, but it's more tangible now that the moon is in Virgo. There's a tangibility. So I do anticipate some levels of change in the negotiation, but I also feel like there is some kind of like, there's some moxie to it. There's gumption, there's tangibility to it. You're actually writing it up. You're actually signing the documents. You're actually seeing physical hard data based off of what has come to light, the shock of the system. And we're still in the shocking vibration. But remember, we had that one final square between the moon and Uranus. And as we continue over these next 2 days, while the moon is in Virgo, Uranus is going to turn direct. So let's take a look at how that's going to go. Let's get back into it. All right. Now, on Tuesday, we're going to get into the 3rd. There's not a whole lot going on. After the moon goes into Virgo, there's just not a whole lot going on. Even as we go through the day on Tuesday, we're going to feel, again, the mental change. We're going to feel the communicative change. Some of us are going to be aware of something that we need to release or let go of. That is most specific in the lunchtime hour, because between 1 and 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon's going to hit this conjunction to the South Node. Now, when I say something that we must release, like this is the South Node, so it's the body of the dragon that we purged, that we released, that we let go of, that we've outgrown, that we're not going to continue to do anymore. And some people, based off of the solution that came through in the last 24 hours or the conversations about how something hurt another person, we are suddenly willing to make a change in that regard of like, oh, I didn't realize that this was creating more of an issue for you. I didn't realize this was creating more work for you. We don't have to keep doing that. And again, there's something kind of liberating about that. But in this mid aspect of the day, we have the moon's conjunction to the South Node. The thing about the South Node is it can also be the body. So we might be feeling this, a physical effect feeling in the body based off of this part right here. Things in your gut health, maybe an issue in regards to like your hand cramping up, like you start to feel that carpal tunnel because you've done so much desk work or something like that. It could be that. It could be like a release, a mental release because of how much we've had going on. And this still plays into the fact that as we get into the evening time, most specifically at 8:34 p.m. So bump this down first. 8:30, here is Uranus 2727 retrograde. See it retrograde? I bump it another hour. Uranus is direct. Uranus ends its retrograde. There is a turn in the vibration. There is a relief in the vibration. There is a release for certain people. And again, it might be tied to that solution information that we were talking about on Monday. Some of the shock of, I didn't know that this was a problem. I didn't know what I didn't know. Let's see if we can fix it and not create something that is so heavy, so frustrating. Because for some people, it can be frustrating. Doesn't have to be heavy. I don't feel like this is the hugest dynamic of weeks. I feel like there's an internal vibration as we continue throughout the week. And there are reasons for that. But the main thing about Tuesday is the moon will hit that conjunction to the South Node, and Uranus is going to end its retrograde. And again, this is the last time we end a Uranus retrograde in Taurus. Many of you are being pushed into alignment with something that is 8 years in the making, and you don't even realize that's what's going to be, because we've literally been dealing with Uranus in Taurus since 2018. And now between here and the end of April, we are wrapping this up. So the liberation is also a part of the directional shift as we continue forward. Okay, let's get into the 4th. We're getting into Wednesday. Not a whole lot of transits, but the moon is going to be in Virgo all day long. Our first transit's going to happen between 2:30 and 4:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And this is where Jupiter, 16 degrees, 59 minutes, hits a sextile to the moon, 1655. So we're just a few astrological minutes from this being exact, but I always give a good 2-hour window. Jupiter, again, is the doctor, the guru, the teacher. There's something about healing. There's something about the lessons. There's something about the support. There's something about the money, because Jupiter can also be the prosperity and the abundance, wealth levels of things. So there can be something about the money, something about the cost, some level of support, or a lack thereof. Considering Jupiter is retrograde right now, technically Jupiter is moving in an opposite direction of the moon. So some of us might be like, I don't know where we're going to get the support in this kind of conversation, or I don't know how we get something going in this conversation, because it feels like for some people, Jupiter is a little hesitant. I need to know more. I need to see more. I need more information. I need more data. That might be a loaded statement with how the rest of the week is going to go. But there could be a hesitancy. Now, again, this is happening at 3:30 in the morning, Central Standard Time. You might not all be dealing with hesitancy in the middle of the night. This could be dream energy, download energy of showing you a message of like there is a hesitancy. Just be aware of that. For other people, it's going to have a physical manifestation, either late Tuesday evening. I'm just showing you when it's the most exact, or you wake up to some kind of email or information on the morning time. So in the daytime hours, again, understanding there might be a hesitancy. I'm not saying that it's a complete no. I'm saying like there is a hesitancy of somebody not completely on board or understanding something else that's going on. Because whenever we look at this sextile, This is loosely in a quincunx to the sun. So that means not seeing eye to eye. So the hesitancy could be because so-and-so is not on board. I don't know if I can help. So don't be surprised if you have elements of hesitancy. Okay, keeping this going. Once we get into the actual daytime, this is going to be the afternoon. Between 4:12 and 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm getting to move there now. Here's 4:30. Venus is going to hit her sextile to Chiron. Now, the thing about this is I'm showing you the most exact, kind of like with the Mercury thing. I was showing you the most exact. This can manifest at any time through the day. It is not specific to the minute of this transit. It can manifest at any point throughout the day. Venus is still in the higher authority. We're talking about the appreciation. We're talking about the appearance of something, how it looks now that it's fixed, how it looks now that it's healed. It's a different kind of vibration for a lot of people. So just kind of be aware of what you're feeling during this time. For other people, this is the feedback. If Mercury sextile to Chiron offered a solution, some kind of information towards the solution, this right here could be the feedback or the outcome tied to the earlier parts of the week. So it doesn't have to be heavy. Sextiles aren't normally a heavy energy, but considering the moon is still in Virgo in Mercury sign, and that's where the moon was going during the first sextile with Chiron, there's an arguability that we're trying to find a solution, or we're finding a solution that not everybody agrees with. That could be one part of it, or it's along the lines of like there's an appreciation that we did find a solution, but somebody else could be a little salty about it. Now, the reason I'm saying the salty behavior is I'm looking at the moon in Virgo. It is now kind of in the quincunx to Venus and Chiron of like, oh, well, they think that they can just do whatever they want to do. That's not the method. That's not what we agree to. That's not the process that we agree to. And somebody can be a little salty. Some people could be hearing about things that they just don't agree with, and it might still be about the appearance of something. There can be like outsider elements of kind of that not seeing eye to eye level of vibration. Again, there's strategizing, there's negotiating, there's information to this week, there's a lot of communication to this week, but we're not getting a lot of process or a lot of not process progress. It's bouncing everything around based off of the data. Some of us, we're getting data and we're showing, again, appreciation towards it. So don't be surprised by that. Okay. As we get into the evening time, most specifically between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So get this now at 10:30. Here is Uranus 2727 hitting the trine to the moon 2717. Now, I'm looking at the fact that the moon is in Mercury sign, and Mercury is about to hit a square to Uranus. I do feel like the entirety of the moon in Virgo has certain information, certain process, certain procedures, certain negotiations, certain strategizing that is going to come through as some level of news, most specifically between Thursday and Friday. But it feels like we can get some final things together, and not everybody is a part of the conversation, but that doesn't mean that they won't be later on. It just feels like there's some final elements, and this still can speak back to whatever happened on Monday whenever Uranus was squaring the moon. I feel like some parts of this lunar Uranian part is connected in a certain way, considering we're about to have Mercury hit that square and Venus hit that square, and the moon is going to go from Mercury sign to Venus's sign. So there is a reason for this data oriented, informational oriented, strategizing type of conversations right now. It's loud, it's noisy, but the noise has a purpose. Okay, Uranus is going to hit the trine of the moon, the most exact, between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. We're going to go ahead and bump this now into the 5th. And right as we're getting into the 5th, the moon is going to start its opposition to Saturn. And this is going to be the most exact between 1 and 3 a.m. So I got it now at 2:30. Here's the moon, 29 degrees, 26 minutes. Here is Saturn, 29 degrees, 4 minutes. So we're a little bit past the exactness. It was exact closer to that 2 p.m. But again, I always give a larger window whenever it comes to some of these oppositions. So I give a 2-hour window. When the moon hits the opposition to Saturn, this is the last opposition to Saturn before Saturn changes signs. Because remember, February 13th, 14th, depending on your time zone, because some of y'all listen to me in other time zones. zones. Saturn is going into Aries. So this is this last opposition. And now Saturn is at 29 degrees. So Saturn is wanting to get something completed, wanting to get something handled, wanting to get something transitioned. He has a goal. Once he goes into Aries, he's trying to start something. He's trying to manifest something. He's trying to do something. We can be talking about our role. We're talking about our responsibility, talking about something with the elder, talking about something with the boss, getting some information from the boss, telling something to the boss, telling something to the elder. We could be the person in the Saturnian sense of like giving delegations to someone, but not realizing it might be for the last time, because for some people, it will be for the last time. For some people, it's the last time. This is literally you telling them the news. This is not happening again for one reason or another. And there is something about the day of the 5th. Like, so as we continue through the day, that there is going to be some shocks to the system. There will be some things that are kind of confusing and blindsiding, some things that we just do not see coming. And this will make sense as I continue to show you the transits throughout the day. Now, if I bump this forward another hour, the moon is going to still be exiting its opposition to Saturn. It's starting its opposition to Neptune at 3:33 a.m. So I'm going to bump this down from 3:30 to 4:30. The moon is going to go into Libra. And again, as soon as the moon goes into Libra, it is already in an opposition to Neptune. The lies, the fraud, the deception. That's the negative side. The effects, the way something is feeling, the haziness, the cloudiness, there's something that was not seen, something that we were not privy to before. And this is new because Neptune is at 0 degrees of Aries. The moon just went to 0 degrees of Libra. There's something new that we didn't see coming, that we were not anticipating. There's some parts of it that's going to be very confusing, some parts of it that's going to be very hazy. It's going to be hard to judge some things. And considering while the moon is in the opposition to Neptune, we are building to that Mercury-Uranus square. It is actually going exact in the overnight hours while the moon is in the opposition to Neptune. There's some shocking news, some shocking information. There's some things that are coming through that are going to have a larger impact that we don't see coming. A lot of us are not going to see it coming. There's a reason for that. So here's the moon, 0 degrees, 30 minutes in that opposition to Neptune. But where is Mercury? He's at 27 degrees, 20 minutes. This is heightened. This is building to its exactness. It actually goes exact between 6:05 and 6:19. So I'm bumping this now to 6:30. And here's Mercury, 27:28. Here's Uranus, 27:27. I don't care that this is going exact around 6 o'clock in the morning. It's not about the exactness. This can play out at any point through the overnight hours into the daytime. Shocking news, shocking information, some very confusing things, some things that we did not know before because we have this Neptune element hitting the opposition to the moon while Mercury and Uranus are going through this square. There is something coming through we did not see coming. Some of us did not see it coming. Some of us know that as soon as we give that news, because we were working through it all through the Virgo transit part, it's like as soon as we give that news, we want them to be blindsided. We want them to know we're not playing. We want that shock to their system. We understand this shock is necessary. We're given that kind of news. Mercury square to Uranus. I know it's exact in the morning time. This is the dominating energy through the entire day. I can't be clear about that enough. It's not about the exact time in this moment, but there will be some people that the shocks to their system, they're going to be indifferent. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to be stubborn. There's going to be some tensions potentially and arguments for other people. We understand what we're doing, and there's a purpose to what we're doing. Mercury square to Uranus, and Mercury being in the higher authority in that square to Uranus, but Mercury is in Uranus' sign. We understand what we're doing. We understand this conversation. We understand the plan. Okay. Getting into the brunch hour between 10 a.m. and noon, got this now at 11:30. The moon in Libra, 4 degrees, 14 minutes, hits a trine to Pluto, 3 degrees, 50 minutes. This was exact closer to the 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, but remember, we always get a 2-hour window whenever we look at everything. With the moon hitting the trine to Pluto, there's news, conversation, considering we still have Mercury in that square to Uranus. Some people are going to be aware of something around the plumbing. That's a Pluto thing. Some people are going to be aware of what's been going on behind the scenes, some type of power struggle type of energy. That's the Pluto thing. For other people, we're going to be seeing like how much someone has changed and how much somebody is willing to accept a challenge. That's the Pluto thing. And the moon being in this trine, we're talking through, we're communicating it. We're telling people, you look so good since you broke up with that dude. Like being single looks amazing on you. I want you to know how much of a physical transformation you have experienced, that you have done, that people can see in you, whether you realize it or not. The moon hitting the trine to Pluto. This doesn't have to be heavy, but considering we do saw Mercury squaring Uranus during this time frame, some people might get certain shocking news that triggers insecurity. But for other people, it's seeing the power dynamic shift. And again, seeing how someone has transformed or how they're willing to deal with some type of power struggle, or understanding somebody's plumbing issues because it's Pluto. Because yay. Oh, we're in Mercury, Uranus all day long. We're in the moon and Libra all throughout the rest of the day. Our next transit actually doesn't happen until the late, late hours. And it's going to be one of those transits that carries us from one day to the next. So between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. on the 6th, the moon is going to hit a trine to Mars. This can be a little bit more disruptive. This could be asking about somebody's actions, what their intention is to do about something, what they're wanting to do. We could be trying to understand somebody's rage, somebody's frustration, somebody's willing to argue about something, what somebody is building, again, the action or the reaction that they're taking. The moon is in the higher authority, but it's in Venus' sign, so it's kind of passive aggressive. It's like, what are you building? That looks dangerous. Are you sure you should be doing dangerous things? Are you sure you should be playing with those chemicals? Are you sure you should be using a welder? Are you sure? I don't know if you're sure. This isn't a good idea. It's kind of obnoxious the way I'm describing it, but it's the best way I can understand. It's like, I understand the reason you're reacting, but maybe we can do something a little bit less. It's still very conversational, but the moon in Libra tends to be a little bit more passive aggressive. We can be more focused on what's fair for everybody, but we can be looking at somebody's reaction to something, be like, is that really the smartest idea? Do you really think we should? And again, the moon is going to go into this trine with Mars. It's going to start on the 5th. It continues as we go into the 6th. So again, this is one of those transits, and it's in the carryover hours. Some of us, it's going to be some cracking some jokes again, is like, well, there's better ways to do that. I could think of a few. Remember the last time you did something crazy? Let's talk about the last time you did something crazy. Shut up. But come on, it's so fun. It's so fun to make fun of you and not me. But just remember, those people poke back. They will make fun of you back. They will hit your nerves back. Doesn't have to be a horrible thing. Just be aware that some people can poke the bear backwards. Okay. The moon is in that trine to Mars again. It's a carryover transit. It takes us from the 5th to the 6th. As we go into the actual daytime hours of the 6th, so getting this here now, between 10:30 and 12:30 p.m. So I actually bumped this to 11:30. We have Jupiter, 16 degrees, 45 minutes, hitting a square to the moon, 1649. Now, the moon, it's interesting because the moon is going through this square to Jupiter, but simultaneously it's starting a trine to the sun. And over the last few days, the sun and Jupiter were in a quincunx. There was areas of the sky that spoke to people not seeing eye to eye, people being kind of dismissive, being kind of frustrated with certain things, not wanting to listen to certain people, like, no. And this is where we could have some negotiative types of actions to figure something out. Jupiter's still hesitant because Jupiter's retrograde hitting the square to the moon. We're like, I don't know that I want to be a part of all this. I don't know that I want to support all this. I don't know that I want to talk through all this. Jupiter hitting the square to the moon. But simultaneously, as after Jupiter goes through this square, it starts its trine, and that happens right afterwards. So I'm going to bump this now to 1:30. And now you can see the sun hitting 1752, going into this trine with the sun, now at 18 degrees in 1 minute. If there has been indifference, we have the ability to talk through some of that as we get into the later part of the week. There is something about a belief change that is starting to take shape. And there is something that we're willing to almost submerge ourselves into after certain conversations are had. And this conversation time frame, it's the most exact for me, at least in the central time zone, between 10:30 a.m. and 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is a lot of noisy time. This is a lot of negotiative time. This is a lot of like putting some things straight, even if we're not getting everything completely agreed on. There is getting some information set straight. And as we get into the evening time, most specific at 4:49 p.m. So let me bump this here. 4:30, here's Mercury 29:58. I bump this to 5:30. Mercury is now in Pisces. And this again is where Mercury is going to be until April 14th. This is an arrival. This is news of an arrival. This is news of a transition. This is news of change. There is something that's meant to start being communicated over the next 24 hours, something that will be shocking for some people, restorative to others. Mercury is now in Pisces, and I personally call this vibration lost in the sauce because Mercury does not do well in Jupiter's signs. Now, the thing that we do have going for us is Neptune is newly in Aries, so Neptune is kind of being fueled by something. So whatever we're lost in the sauce about, it has to do with the fueling. Jupiter is in its exaltation in Cancer. So the thing is even though Jupiter is hesitant on something, doesn't have all the information yet, but is willing to listen, the next 2 months is what we do to change the opinions of certain people, to get certain people on board. And it really comes down to either what we're bringing to the surface or where our beliefs are focused in on, like where we need to get certain people in alignment, especially when it comes to their beliefs or what they've been trying to manifest for themselves. Mercury is now in Pisces, and we're going to be in this in energy for a while. Okay. Our next transit is going to be one of those carryover transits. I'm going to get this now to 11:30. Between 11 p.m. on the 6th and 1 a.m. on the 7th, the moon is hitting this opposition to Chiron. The moon is in Venus' sign. I want to be fair to everybody. I want to do what's right. I want to know what's going to be the best for you, the best for me, the best for everybody. Hitting this opposition to Chiron. Chiron is either talking about how something has hurt them in the past, addressing certain wounds from the past. Even though Chiron is direct, we can still be talking about past wounds since we're going over areas of the sky where Chiron has already been. How recent things have hurt us, or again, we're talking through the solution and what's the best way to get something solved. Again, this transit starts 11 p.m. on the 6th. It continues into the 7th because you can still see the moon 2331 hitting this opposition to Chiron right here. So we still have a vibration around either what has hurt us, how we've fixed something, what we've done in our healing process, what's necessary in the solutions. And it's either completely telling someone else or asking completely, like, tell me what is needed right now. Tell me what the solution is. Tell me how we fix it. This is just one of those carryover energies that takes us into the 7th. I'm going to keep this going forward after the moon's opposition to Chiron as we get into the morning time. Between 5 and 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon, 26/4, is going to hit a trine to Venus. Now, what's interesting is the moon is in Venus' sign. Venus is building to her square to Uranus. It's not exact yet. It's going to go exact over the course of the weekend. But we have this energy that speaks to like understanding, again, the fairness of everybody, putting some type of emphasis on the solution, giving more of an understanding of how you put something forward. There is like this logical, like I understand their thought process. I understand why they think the way they do. I understand why they act the way they do. I understand where they're coming from. If you listen to me, I can help you understand at least how to communicate something better, at least how you can put forth a solution in a way that they're willing to accept. There is an understanding, there is processing, there's information in this vibration. It can be spiritual for some people. It's more logical for other people with the moon going through the trine to Venus. I understand the taste. I understand their concepts. I understand their ideas. I understand something. Hear me out and I can help you understand it too. The moon hitting the trine to Venus. Now, if we bump this forward Get this first. Here's 12:30 lunchtime. Sorry, I was swapping AM and PM in my head for a second. Got this now at 12:30 p.m. The moon is at this final degrees of Libra. After the moon's trine to Venus, the moon kind of goes void for a little bit. But then between 12:30 and 1:30 p.m., so now I'm bumping this to 1:30, the moon is going to go into Scorpio. And I'm really looking forward to this part of the vibration. There's something about after the moon goes into Scorpio that there's hidden details. There's stuff going on behind the scenes. There's backdoor handshakes. There's camaraderie and connection that not everybody is aware of quite yet. I'm not saying that they won't become aware. They will. And most likely it's going to be something that comes through in eclipse season. But if you are trying to get certain people on your side before something gets presented, you are trying to get certain details worked out before something becomes public in some way, before the rest of the family knows, before everybody on the job site knows, before everybody in the office knows, whatever terminology, everybody in the school knows, we need to have some kind of backdoor, back room understanding. And while the moon is in Scorpio, there are transits that speak to exactly that. There's also stuff that needs to be dealt with in a certain way. And sometimes public is not the best way to look at it. Because again, so many people have opinions right now. And it's not about everybody's opinion. It's what's finding the best solution. Not everybody's going to agree to that. But there's something about the moon in Scorpio, given other transits that we're about to talk about, that really speaks to something going on behind the scenes, backdoor commitments, behind the scenes negotiations. There's something behind us not being seen by everybody. And it won't be seen for a few weeks for a lot of people. But the back room kinds of conversations, that's exactly what's going to be necessary as we get through the weekend. So let's keep this going. The moon is now in Scorpio, and as soon as the moon goes into Scorpio, it's going to start a trine to Mercury, and that is going to be felt the most exact between 3:30 and 5:30 p.m. So now I got this at 4:30. Here's the moon, 1 degree, 39 minutes. Here is Mercury, 1 degree, 43. So you can see how close we are to it right here. There's something emotional. There's something that we're talking about. There's something about our beliefs that we're focused on. There's some kind of shift in the energy. There's something that we need to work through, talk about in certain ways. There are feelings being discussed. There are beliefs being discussed. There are dreams and desires. There's healing being discussed. Why am I saying that? Because Mercury is newly in Pisces. Some of the conversations that we're not going to be privy to everybody, it's the stuff that we're talking about behind the scenes before everybody's aware of it. We need to also talk about and have an understanding around our belief systems. And we're going to have some unexpected results and outcomes. And there is something about this weekend between February 7th, February 8th, and February 9th that directly impact the Neptune-Saturn conjunction, which is going to be the most exact on the 20th. It's going to directly impact what Saturn's focused on once Saturn goes into Aries. There's a reason behind the scenes is necessary. There's a reason for the backdoor agreements to happen. There's a reason for it. Hear me out on that. The moon is hitting this trine to Mercury. This again is going to be felt most exact between 3:30 and 5:30 p.m. The moon is going to continue going through Scorpio. And as we get into the evening time, most specific between 8 and 10 p.m., I got it now at 9:30. Here's the moon, 4 degrees, 10 minutes, hitting its square to Pluto. And the moon is in Pluto's sign. We're talking about the triggers. We're talking about the fears. We're talking about the insecurities. We're talking about the recent changes. We're talking about the transformation. We're hoping for some kind of solution of mutual understanding. Why am I saying that? Because Venus is starting her square to Uranus, and over the next 12 hours, she will hit her exact square. Venus and Uranus are in mutual reception. The moon is in Pluto's sign, but also Mars' sign. Scorpio is ruled by both of them, and both Pluto and Mars are in Aquarius. So it still comes down to the dominance of Venus and Uranus as the moon is going through Scorpio. There is a need for the understanding in this vibration. There is a need to get something handled, to get something negotiated. There's a need for stuff going on that not everybody is aware of. Secret meetings. There's a need for it. The moon is hitting the square to Pluto. And now, again, this is the most exact between 8 and 10 p.m. We can be addressing the plumbing issues in a mundane sense, if it's plumbing. If it is a fear, a power struggle dynamic, an understanding of triggers or wounds, Pluto can have those same types of things. The way Pluto deals with triggers and wounds versus Chiron's, two very different vibrations. And some people might be in a position, moon in Scorpio, to tell somebody something that just makes them mad. It just brings up an insecurity. It's just a little bit of a trigger. I don't like it. I'm not wishing for that for everybody, but I'm realistic. Like there's sometimes that certain people just don't know how to control their emotions. And there can be some kinds of insecurities that are coming through too with the moon hitting the square to Pluto. After this, we're done with the transits of the 7th. We're going to get into the 8th. And in those overnight hours between 3:48 and 4:06, so I got this now at 3:30, Venus hits her exact square to Uranus. It's going to go between 27 degrees, 27 minutes and 27:28. So over the course of the hour, they're going to actually move within degrees of each other, but you can kind of see this here. Venus is hitting her exact square to Uranus. This can play out anytime over the weekend. Venus and Uranus are in mutual reception. They are in each other's house. Uranus knows where Venus's keys are. Venus is feeding Uranus's dogs. They're in mutual reception. They're understanding each other. They're helping each other out. There is a reason for this. There is a benefit. There is an understanding. There is still some shock, some unexpected things, some surprising things. This is still a Uranian transit, but there's also something around beliefs that are very much capturing a big part of this conversation. And the reason I say that is because what's going on between Saturn and Neptune. These two are building into a CONTRA-ANTISCIA over the weekend. They are going into a hidden conjunction before they go into their actual conjunction going into that February 20th timeframe. There's a reason we're committing to something right here. It's because we want the bigger launch later. And we've been strategizing, talking about it, conversating, communicating, negotiating all week long before we finally get to some element that seems like a beneficial level of potential commitment. And it's not a commitment that everybody's meant to see. And that's the harder thing. Not everybody's going to be understanding what's going on because they can't fully see all of it. Oh, Lord. It's going to get interesting. But here's Venus is square to Uranus. We're going to keep this going. After Venus is square to Uranus, we're going to be in that vibration all day long. I want to be clear about that. It's not specific to the 3 and 4 a.m. time span. As we get into the afternoon between 2 and 4 p.m., the moon in Scorpio is going to hit its square to Mars. So the moon is in the higher authority. Mars rules Scorpio. So again, we have this idea of understanding, conversating about certain understandings. We understand why certain people are feeling the way that they do, the rage that they do. We're understanding the reactions that they're having. We're understanding the actions that they want to take. There is an understanding in disruption. The moon is hitting that square, but the moon is in Mars' sign in that square. So there is levels of understanding. The actual CONTRA-ANTISCIA will be the most exact as we get into the evening time, most specifically between 8:30 and 11 p.m. And this is not a transit that many people talk about, but I always notice their pattern. So I got this now at 9:30. And Saturn and Neptune, if I was to fold the chart right here at the line between Pisces, Aries, Neptune, Libra, and there's a very specific reason why it's this line and not like Aries, Taurus. Like this, you can't do this, get the same thing if you fold Aquarius on top of Pisces. I want to be clear about that. This is very specific to the starts of cardinal signs. These two are in a CONTRA-ANTISCIA. This is known as a hidden handshake, a hidden agreement, a hidden conjunction. But I know these two are going to have an actual conjunction later in the month. This is necessary There's something behind the scenes getting agreed upon, coming to terms with over the course of the 8th that will have a bigger, louder, more dominant expression closer to the 20th of February, 20th, 22nd timeframe, like the second half of February, closer to eclipse season, which is what we're preparing for right now. And in this same time span, while we're going through this contra-ANTICIA, Jupiter is hitting a trine to the moon. Now, Jupiter is hosting the moon. I'm sorry, the moon is hosting Jupiter, and Jupiter is hosting Saturn. So some part of this understanding is an part of what we've needed to do to alleviate certain hesitations. This is where we're going to see a shift in certain ways, but it's not going to be like this big lightning bolt type of shift. It's just not. But it's one of those that's very, very internally affirming. And I do feel like some people are going to have some very specific downloads through the day, most exact on Sunday, the 8th, right here. Like we get the downloads of something that we want to do that's going to have like a big part of a healing effect for some people or emotional gratification for some people. But again, it's not something that is being directly implemented or showcased to the entire world. It's just not being seen that way right now. There's something about the behind the scenes, below the surface, back room types of negotiations. There's a commitment of sorts that takes more work to do afterwards. It's not immediately being broadcasted for everybody. And there's something about the weekend, the 7th, the 8th, and going into the 9th, which the 9th is next week, Monday. There's something about these few days that feels like it directly impacts what we launch in eclipse season and what we're really showcasing in the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. This is a gearing in, strategizing towards, negotiating towards type of vibration. It's noisy. Now, we're not going to get a whole lot done throughout the week. There's a lot of indifference. There's a lot of stubborn energy. There's a lot of I don't knows. I don't understand it. Or I need more details. I need more data. Write me something up. Show me the proof. Show me the receipts. Show me something before we're willing to commit to certain details. And there's something about this vibration right around the 8th. It can go into the 9th. So it can go into the start of the next week. That feels like once we get the right data there, the understanding is much, much deeply understood. Like it's more deeply than what you would initially realize. And there are going to be some hidden details that you want to do in your life. But again, you don't want to tell everybody, or you get the commitment from your boss, like, yeah, we're going to promote you, but we're not going to announce it until the company meeting in 2 to 3 weeks. We're not going to do something immediately. But there's a big element towards our mental belief once Mercury goes into Pisces. And if you were one of those people that you didn't do the opposite before, or you're not sure if you did the opposite or not, once Mercury goes into Pisces, it's going to test us a little bit. It's going to make us really reconsider certain emotional thinking. But that's going to be something that takes the entirety of Mercury in Pisces. And you're going to feel more of it when Mercury goes retrograde. But I'm telling you, as soon as Mercury goes into Pisces, which that happens midway through the week, those first rounds of connections and information, they're showing you something that's going to directly impact the Mercury retrograde. It's bringing something forward. It's news of news that will directly impact later. This week is important to strategize all the risk factors, really get everybody on the right page, really get all your documentation together before the kickoff, before the launch, before the big reveal. It's noisy, it's communicative, it's busy, mentally opening your mouth, busy. What you also need to realize is some of y'all might put your foot in your mouth. And that's the truth, because there's so much to be said and so many opinions going around. And they have these little markers through the week that speak to indifference or not seeing eye to eye. That for some people, that's going to be a stubborn energy. For other people, it's going to be like, you just said the wrong thing and now you're 2 steps behind. It's like, man, I thought this person was going to work, but then I had to open my mouth. Yeah. Whether you like it or not, this week, use your words. Use your big person words. Open your mouth. It's a very mentally charged, strategically charged, communicatively charged week. And for some people, it's based off of the shocks, again, of what has gone on over the last few weeks. There's the ripple effect of that. But it is also making us come together in something, not directly seen by everyone quite yet, but come together with something, for something in a certain way. That's the key thing. There's a certain way. But once that concept is kind of put together, it will speak to what we start to continue to connect as we get closer to eclipse season. We're gearing things into eclipse season. We're talking about what we need to get put together for eclipse season. So be aware of that. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the people that have already booked your BOGO readings. If you're wanting to do BOGO gift certificates, this is not an option on the website. I've already had somebody ask me about this. This is something you got to email me directly, and I would have to send you like a PayPal invoice or something like that. So just be aware of that too. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.